Yeah, we figured that. There's no sign, no seat.
On her last day, she didn't want to spend it with this budget subcommittee. I don't understand.
I'll take that on. See that you,
The day before her last day.
all these projects I'm telling you.
That's too bad. Like, Robert, you could-
Yeah.
I really can't.
Yeah.
Well, there's a solution for that. Retire.
Yeah, I guess we could move the board meetings tonight, but I guess.
You know.
You can do it.
Do we have to do it during the day?
You're gonna.
Persons are not, so yeah, because have like bid actually in the charter.
So because of that reading part, we had to mitigate.
Is the city council also, they had started, I guess maybe they had started 5, that's.
I don't know. After it's done, because we looked at, like,
Oh, yeah, let me check. Yeah, let me check. Tell me if I'm going the
Did
right.
not know that. I did not realize that our schedule was in the charter. That's interesting detail to be in the charter.
As long as all of your delegates.
Is that good?
I get it.
That makes The Brown Act means it says we have to have a resolution every year, even if it's in the charter. Brown Act says a resolution.
Yeah, just look out.
I think you do every year, but I mean, it's one of the requirements is to adopt because that's what makes a meeting a regular meeting instead of a special meeting. Is if it's in the resolution that sets your meeting schedule.
Okay, there we all are.
That's, I was in the charter review, not this last time, but the time before. It's been a while since I've been in the charter review.
Okay, folks, I'm gonna call this meeting to order.
All right, get this joke.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Secretary Montoya, can we have a roll call?
Vice Chair Rooney,
Here.
Board Member Bartholow is absent, and Chair Wright.
Here.
And let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Bartholow.
Okay, remote participation is not needed. We are now taking comments on item 3, public comment. If you are in the room, please move to the microphone and wait for the timer to appear on the screen. And I see nobody else here that's gonna speak. And now, Director Burke, could you introduce item 4.1?
Sure, thank you, Chair Wright and members of the subcommittee. Our only item today is the Santa Rosa Water fiscal year 26-27 water, wastewater, regional, and stormwater and creeks budget overview. And Nick Harvey, our Deputy Director of Administration, and Liz Hanley, our Supervising Engineer over Asset Management, will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Director Burke, and good afternoon, board members. We're here today for the second meeting to discuss the fiscal year 26-27 water, wastewater, regional reuse, stormwater and creeks O&M and CIP budgets. So we're going to start today by doing a quick overview of the information you saw last time regarding all of our operations and maintenance total budgets. I'll hand it to Liz briefly to go over the CIP highlights for next year. We'll give you a quick update on the remaining budget schedule, and we'll finish off today with our investment recommendation. So in terms of assumptions that were used to develop this year's budget, we're projecting water deliveries to increase by 1.1%, and that's based on the growth assumption consistent with our financial modeling. Rather than being attributable to anticipated growth, demand increase from our existing customers. We're thinking that wastewater use is going to remain flat, which is typically what we see using the sewer capping methodology that we use. We are seeing, at least in terms of demand for revenue, that development has been slowing somewhat in terms of demand for revenue. We have reduced our reliance on those funds in our budget. And continuing with our 5-year proposed rate schedule, we're increasing both water usage and fixed fees by 6% and sewer usage and fixed by 5% as of July 1, 2026. So that's also been included in our revenue assumptions. So these are the expenditure categories where we're generally seeing increases across the department. Salaries are being escalated by 4% across the board due to the MOU increases. Electricity is increasing in the regional enterprise by 10%, taking into account maintenance issues with the CHP engines, which offset energy demand, as well as considering the need for higher electricity consumption due to the higher UV doses being required by our current system. Per the rate model, we're using a 1.1% growth assumption and escalating our 25-26 water purchase budget of 15,440 acre feet. And we're also applying the 8.21% wholesale water rate increase implemented by Sonoma Water. So based on that, and on an anticipated delivery volume of 15,610 acre feet and a per acre foot rate of about $1,515 per, we land on a total water purchase budget of approximately $23.6 million.
That's purchase budget?
Water purchase budget, yes. And we're also seeing our internal overhead budgets gone up, accounting for increased costs in the water admin fund, but we're actually seeing a reduction in external overhead costs in each of our enterprise funds, likely due to reductions made in the general fund, bringing down the total amount of overhead to be allocated for the year. We're seeing modest O&M increases for each of our operating funds, with a larger increase in the water fund, mostly attributable to Sonoma Water wholesale rate increase I just spoke to. Stormwater and creeks are only increasing by 1% in the aggregate, with about 22% of that funding being provided by the general fund. And just a quick note on this, City Manager's Office has, in conjunction with the Finance Department, has put out templates requesting additional 1 or 3% reductions in general fund expenditures. We've worked with our stormwater and creeks team to put together what that might look like for us, but since we're such a small piece of the general fund, we're not sure whether we'll ultimately be asked to implement any of those reductions, but we'll keep you apprised throughout the budgetary process. Getting pretty thin, there's not really much to cut these days, so we'll keep you posted. Our total proposed budget for 26-27 is $170.2 million. That's inclusive of CIP, debt service, and O&M costs for each of our local enterprises, as well as Santa Rosa's regional contributions to the regional reuse enterprise, which this year is budgeted at $58 million. And we kind of switched up how we display this because the showing the entire regional expenditure picture one shot is kind of a misnomer, because Santa Rosa is responsible for between 70 and 75% of the total. So I decided to show it like this so that we could see the exact reserve hit to the local wastewater enterprise, that being the $58 million that we're expected to contribute next year. Total O&M budget for the water enterprise is $49.1 million for next year, with most of that being dedicated to our water purchases. And here's the graphic on the proposed $16 million wastewater O&M expenditure budget, and the largest categories here for personnel and internal and external overhead. We have seen a reduction in water billing services. I don't remember the amount of the reduction off the top of my head, but it was several $100,000, and that's attributable to the credit card fee change that we just implemented, which is saving the enterprise between $600,000 and $800,000 a year. So that's reflected in smaller water billing service charges out to both the water and local wastewater funds for the year. So here's a breakdown of the total regional expenditures for next year, inclusive of the planned miscellaneous revenues represented by a negative figure as it reduces net expenditure allocations in the fund. Personnel costs, debt service, and capital expenditures continue to be the most significant budgetary categories for the fund. Here's a summary of the refund reserve balance as of June 30th, 2025 for the regional enterprise, as allocated to each partner agency. As you can see, nearly $7.5 million was generated last year, owing largely to the success of our trucked waste program, as well as strong interest in miscellaneous revenues. As a reminder, each of the regional partner agencies own their respective balances and are free to use them as hedges against future cost allocations or cash them. As discussed with our partner agencies at the last subtac meeting, and as you saw as a consent item on the last BPU agenda, we're planning on asking council to increase expenditure appropriations to the tune of $7.5 million to fill the funding gap on the electrical infrastructure, the UV system replacement project, actually. So we're gonna, based on your recommendation, we're gonna be taking that to council, essentially generating the expenditure appropriations and allowing this reserve balance to essentially absorb that increase. So we'll be taking that to council shortly. Here are the total regional partner allocations for next year. As you can see, the increases are very modest, including a reduction in the overall allocation for Cotati. Again, the main hedge keeping these increases under control is the ongoing success of our trucked waste program, which continues to see strong year-over-year revenue growth. So the trucked waste program is revenues are growing at such a rate that it's really having a rate smoothing effect for Santa Rosa and the partner agencies. So great news on that side of things. I think we budgeted for the current fiscal year, I believe $3.6 million, and we collected $4.7 million in actual revenues last year. So we budgeted that $4.7 million. Yeah, so as you can see, we're seeing an overall increase for the contributions across all agencies at slightly less than 1%, so pretty favorable. So looking at our operating fund reserves as of June 30th, 2025, we can see that water added $5.8 million to the undesignated fund balance, bringing it up to just shy of $21.2 million. We added $4.1 million undesignated fund balance in the wastewater enterprise, bringing that up to just shy of $19 million. And as I just spoke to a little while ago, the refund reserve in the regional enterprise added $7.5 million, bringing that total up to just shy of 16.3. And speaking of the undesignated fund balance in our enterprises, we always like to show you this graphic to show budgeted revenues versus budgeted expenditures and the anticipated effect on reserves for each fund. So in water, based on our rate modeling, we're planning on $64.2 million in revenues against $70.7 million in expenditures. So a $6.5 million planned deficit for that fund. Moving on to local wastewater, we're planning $87.4 million in total revenues against $94.4 million in total expenditures. So a roughly $6.9 million anticipated operating deficit in that fund. And this, I like this slide because as you can see on the expenditure side, you can see just how big of an impact Santa Rosa's regional contributions are to the reserve balance of the local wastewater fund. Here's a look at the stormwater and creeks O&M budget of $3.3 million by category, largely composed of staffing and outside contract costs. Looking at the, just like we did in the other water operating funds, we don't have as many policy derived reserve balances in stormwater and creeks. So just wanted to touch on the undesignated fund balances and the effect of last year's operations. So 1671, our stormwater enterprise, has an undesignated fund balance of $728,000 It reduced last year's balance by approximately $10,000 based on operations for 24-25. Stormwater Creek restoration undesignated fund balance sits at about 1.2 million, with about $108,000 reduction based on last year's operations. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Liz Hanley, our supervising engineer of asset management, to go over some of the details of our CIP funding plan for next year.
Thank you, Nick. So on the screen, you can see here just the highlights of what we're proposing to spend in each fund. For our water fund, the CIP proposal is 16 million, for wastewater 14.7 million, regional 1 million, and then stormwater and creeks 1.7 million. Here we have a pie chart breaking down the water funds numbers for us. This year's proposed spending is 16 million. This is up from last year, which was 15.5 million. You can see that our reservoir projects make up a majority of our funding at 37%, followed by water mains and services at 21%. And then our groundwater category, along with master plan studies, miscellaneous category, and also our pump station categories are all around 13 to 15% of the total. Moving on to our wastewater fund, we're proposing 14.7 million this year, which is up from 14.3 million last fiscal year. Our sewer mains and services projects make up 51% of our funding, followed by our sewer trunks at 38%. Our master plan studies and miscellaneous categories are at 10%. And lastly, our lift stations and facilities are actually 0.3%. For our regional funds, we are budgeting 13 million this year, which is up from 12 million from last year. Our plant infrastructure projects make up most of our funding at 81%, followed by our master planning studies and miscellaneous category at 12%, and our reuse infrastructure is at 8%. Next, we have our stormwater funds. We're budgeting 1.7 million this fiscal year. This is down from $3.4 million last year. The master plan studies and miscellaneous category is our largest at 51%, followed by storm drain projects at 35% and creek projects at 14%.
Okay, and just a quick refresher on the remaining budget schedule. So as you know, tomorrow at the BPU meeting, we'll be holding a study session on the O&M and CIP budgets. April 2nd, we'll be before you with a report item asking your recommendation of the 26-27 budget package to City Council. April 21st, we'll be at City Council requesting their preliminary approval of the regional budget so that we can get the annual allocations mailed off to our partner agencies before May 1st, which is what we target each year. May 5th and 6th is the scheduled City Council budget study sessions, with adoption ultimately occurring on June 16th, public hearing. And with that, it is recommended by Santa Rosa Water that the Board of Public Utilities Budget Review Subcommittee, by motion, recommend that the Board of Public Utilities approve the fiscal year 2026-27 water, local wastewater, regional reuse, stormwater and creeks, and enterprise operations, maintenance, and capital expenditure appropriations requests. And with that, we are happy to open it up to any questions or comments you may have.
Cool. Now I'd like to open up for comments from committee members. Do you have a comment?
I have a couple of comments. So, and I mentioned a little bit right before the meeting, but the introductory pie charts that you start off the presentation with, I like the very first one, has the total budget for the whole water, local wastewater, storm drains, and it shows, it includes capital programs, it includes the budget, the big picture budget. And in the lower right-hand corner, there's a number that says total funding, 170 million. Well, first, I have a problem with the word funding. I mean, if you look at the one for the regional budget, it says total expenditures, not total funding. And I like it, it's an expenditure, because when I see funding, I'm thinking, oh, that's the revenue side. And so that's a little bit misleading, it seems to me, to call that funding. I like the way you did it with regional budget, calling it expenditure. So that's my first comment. And then my second comment is that it's really hard to get a handle on total revenues, because yes, you have those bar charts on the reserves, but but a lot of it's first of all, it's only O&M and it's not capital. And I mean, there was one of each. There was one for each, I guess. But
No, so on the bar chart, we show total revenues and then total expenditures by category. There are some pie charts that don't include capital or debt service, but
okay,
the bar
so
charts
so
are included.
the bar charts are broken down. I misspoke. What I meant to say was they're broken down into water, local wastewater, and creeks and stormwaters. And so, if you want to find out, exactly what the revenue is for the total department, you got to add up numbers from different slides. I guess maybe that's laziness, but it seems to me it'd be nice to have some place where you have something that matches that introductory pie chart, which shows all the expenditures on one pie chart, and maybe just somewhere else on that same slide. So against total revenues of, and then bring them all together, because the bar charts. The issue I had with them was that, again, they break it down into the different components rather than having it department-wide. So that was my concern about that. So all my concerns are about revenue, being able to put my finger on revenue. I mean, I harken back when I was on the Housing Authority, and Wally Lowry was on the water. And Wally was a character, but every single year he would say, okay, somebody show me what are the revenues and what are the expenditures, and I want just discrete numbers. I don't want to have to calculate them. And I've always thought that was a good idea. And I miss Wally. So
Wally was on our board.
he was also on this board
He
too.
was on the board of health.
Okay.
We can definitely look at that, and I don't want to speak for Nick. The two bar charts, there is no revenue for regional, so to speak.
Okay.
There's the miscellaneous revenue, but it is just, this is what the costs are and then charged to the funding partners. So you're seeing the revenue we get on the water side and the revenue we get on the wastewater side compared to all of our expenses in those bar charts, including the portion that goes to pay for regional, right? We can look at a way to display it differently, and then stormwater and creeks, we get the assessment, which we can definitely put in a chart as revenue, and then we get whatever is left over by general fund, basically. So we don't really have, like a revenue estimate other than this is what you're gonna get for this year. So
I'm just talking about something
put it all
simple.
together.
I mean, just applying the rate to the number of anticipated customers and adding 1.1% to it, which is your estimated increase for next year is 1.1%. Just that math someplace, and one line is really what I'm talking about.
So that is in the bar chart.
But it's broken down into, here, the bar chart has it in water, and then it has it in local wastewater. And so it's, I guess if you add up the two revenue bars here, you have one that's 87 million for local wastewater, and then you have 64 million for water. That,
So we can definitely put those together, but
yeah, and not necessarily here, because this, in my mind, this is all about reserves and how we get to where we are and how we're balancing them off. And that's good. And I like the way this presents that. What I'm looking for is something to balance off this very first pie chart, which has the entire department on it. And it has $170 million of total expenditures across everything for capital and O&M. And so even if it was just on this one chart, just adding the revenues that are going to be anticipated during the time you're planning to spend 170 million, I'd like to see what the anticipated revenues are.
When I think, and I've had similar thoughts in the past, I think part of the reason I've shied away from giving that look, because when we talk about total revenues and total expenditures with stormwater and creeks at play, we would have to take the total assessment revenues plus the total general fund contribution, plus the special revenue funding for the CIP piece, and then subtract out the expenditures, because it's not, that number wouldn't be representative of the true estimated reserve impact to just water enterprises. So I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm just saying it can be a little tricky,
Okay,
but we'll
and-
certainly look into it.
All right, that's the only comment I had. It's not anything that's critical. It's just, and maybe my mind works differently than other people's minds, but it just seems like there's a gap that I'd like to be able to fill in, just being able to compare income and expense.
We won't have that for tomorrow, but we can strive for the following meeting. Right, for a recommendation.
That's great, and I thank you for the explanation. I understand it now. It makes more sense now, so appreciate it.
That's it. One simple question. I'm just curious, the truck waste, are we the cheapest and the closest? And that's why we're making, it's gone like gangbusters?
Well, I would refer to Sean McNeil, our Deputy Director of Environmental.
Yeah, so distance from the waste source is a primary driver. And we are cheaper than others. We're gonna be redoing our rate study. We had started a rate study and started implementing a rate study, but we changed that a couple of years ago. We just sat our truck waste coordinator, and one of the first tasks is she's gonna be renewing that and looking at the fee structure. And so we are cheaper, but people aren't really shopping for price, because the most expensive part of hauling waste is the hauling.
The next
So-
closest place is like East Bay Mud or something. isn't it?
Oh, the next biggest one is East Bay Mud, but Central Marin
Oh,
also
Central
has
Marin.
one,
Oh, okay.
has some, and Vallejo takes some types of waste, but not the whole suite that we accept.
And that's still going into our digesters, and we're making power out of it and all that kind of stuff. Oh, that's the truck we say.
That's the high strength waste. So the truck waste program is a whole bunch of waste types,
And that's just one
including
piece.
groundwater from construction sites that is contaminated to a level that it can't be discharged to storm drain. And usually that's just pH augmentation of the site creates that condition. We also receive dairy waste, the milk product waste, not the cow product waste. And that's probably one of our largest revenue streams is Strauss Creamery moved to Rohnert Park, and they haul all their processed waste to us. They probably are about $2 million, $2.5 million of that revenue pie. So breweries haul to us. The high strength waste is a very small portion of the overall truck waste revenue.
Okay. Thank you. That's my only comment. I remember when we first started that little program, we were just dumping into anything, just people come up and back up and dump it into the.
We still have that into the emergency holding basin, right?
Okay, let's see now, where am I? Okay, so now we're open for public comment. We are now taking public comment on item 4.1. If you are in the room, please raise your hand and wait for the timer. I see no members of the public. So I don't think we have to worry about that. And now, do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move that this subcommittee recommend that the Board of Public Utilities approve the fiscal year 2026-27 water, local wastewater, regional reuse, and stormwater and creeks enterprise operations and maintenance and capital expenditure appropriation requests.
And I'll second that motion.
Excuse me.
Now, I think, now, can we have a roll call, Secretary Montoya?
Vice Chair Noni.
Aye.
Board Member Bartholow is absent and Chair Wright.
Aye.
Right, let the record reflect that that motion passes Unanimously with Board Member Bartholomew absent.
And then it says to adjourn the meeting, but last time I was supposed to call for public comments.
We did.
Oh, that was before the public. Okay. All right, very good. So, meeting adjourned.
Thank you for your succinctness.